No, I should not be looking that way. Damn it. Hold on. Move
Look at
this.
camera one, not camera two. Camera one, please. Camera
Exactly.
one.
So I need to move this here. My light. Bloop. Yeah, because I
I
don't
want
want
you
to
to
sit
find
this
your light. Find your light, please.
way. So like people are like,
Okay.
is it is it there? Did I
I need
find
you.
it?
I need you to stand on your mark. No, you're doing beautifully. Just stand on your mark, please. I need you to stand on your mark. Stand on your mark, please. I need you to stand on your mark. I need you to stand on your mark. I need you to stand. What's wrong with these people? Stand on your fucking mark. Stand on it.
Just like looking on the floor for it. Is
And
it right
whatever
here? Is it here?
the production manager just like, oh no, just stand on your mark. Just stand on your mark.
Oh my God. Welcome to Rappin' Atlanta. I'm Nita Sharice.
I'm Nikki.
And in this podcast, we have a frank, honest, and open conversation about the FX show Atlanta. As you know, we covered season 2 a while ago, and it's available on your favorite podcast app. Because we love the show so much, we decided to do a rewatch.
We have noticed that there are similar characteristics in each show, and during our discussion, we offer our impressions on what those features are. There's a "That's So Atlanta" moment in each episode that most clearly and accurately depicts the spirit or quirk that is Atlanta and or is life in the American South.
Dariusisms highlight the special flavor the character Darius brings to the show because he is easily one of the most layered, complex, and compelling characters on television.
There always seems to be a mystical element or some strange thing that happens beyond all logical reason and sometimes scientific explanation. We've all experienced those kind of moments.
And finally, the SGR moment is very plainly the moment in each show when shit got real and we are reminded that life is not a game and desperation has the power to motivate any and every possible action. Today, we are talking about Season 1, Episode 6, Value, directed by Donald Glover, written by Donald Glover and Stephanie Robinson. Van catches up with an old friend whose lifestyle causes her to question her own decisions. Okay.
Okay.
Thoughts?
Oh, goodness. You know, I have to say, I have been very fortunate to have friends who are like, my friends are cool. Like, I have really good friends, lifelong friends that I consider family. You're one of them, of course. I'm not talking about anyone else but you right now, specifically.
The way it should be. Yeah.
But yeah, like I've never felt like, oh, Sania's trying to compete with me or whatever. It's never been like that. Like I've always felt like you were my sister, you're on my side, like you were my ride or die buddy. And there would never be some sort of like, oh well, you should be doing this because this is what I'm doing and this is better. Like,
Yeah.
and it just this meeting made me so uncomfortable. As many times as I've seen this episode before, I hate watching it because I just hate that dynamic that they have. Even though I know they love each other, there is love there, there's something there, that's kept them friends all this long. But I just hate that, and it made me feel fortunate for the relationships I have, but also just like sick for them.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, like you said that there's love there and that there's something there. Just from the snippets that we saw, do you think that that's a friendship that they should continue to try to keep up, or do you think that they should, you know how you sometimes have to just realize that some friendships have run their course and it's okay, like it doesn't have to be like Molly Issa level drama. It's just like, you know what, we're in different places. Like what do you think if you had to rate that friendship? Well, not rate it, but like, do you think that they should just let it go?
Maybe, like there comes a point where you and your friends kind of just grow in different directions and there's no hard feelings or whatever. It's just that you just can't lead the same lives, and therefore you don't necessarily have the same interests anymore. And it's that way, like, you know, if a big change of life happens, like you have a kid, you're not hanging out with your friends that don't have kids anymore. Or if you are, like, it's in a situation where they're like having kid adjacent, they just have to be the type of friend that understands that new
Yeah.
dynamic in your life and is supportive. But for the most part, like, you had friends since high school. This one went off to do this, and this one went off to do that. And you just can't hang in the same way. I get the sense that Van probably was trying to keep up with her. What's her name again?
Jade.
Nadine?
Jade.
Jay. Why
Hmm.
did I say Nadine? I am terrible with names now, like even worse than ever before. Um, but yeah, like I get the feeling like, they were probably buddies in crime, partners in crime. And Van was probably doing all the things that Jade was doing. But then after she had this kid with this questionable guy, I think there was some judgment there on Jade's part, and rightfully so, because
Yeah, I think she's right to judge her for
yeah,
that.
Van could do better than Earn.
She could do
But
much better. Oh my god.
yeah,
She's smart. She's gorgeous. Like she's got a lot to offer. And yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead, finish.
it's okay. I give her that. I think that she is one of the people that truly sees and appreciates Earn on a very personal level. But like, you don't have to, be bunned up with him for the rest of your life. You
Yeah,
know.
I think that what Jade sees is that her friend has fallen in love with potential, which is something that we do a lot. We meaning
Mhm.
women.
Yeah.
I think I'm specifically talking about Black women. I'm sure it's the same in other communities, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about us. And you see like everything that that person can be, and you also love them. Like I don't think it's like an opportunistic thing. Like I guess he's all right, but I'm seeing where he can go, and I'm gonna make sure I'm there for it. That is a very real thing. But
Mhm.
I think that Van really does have love for him, and she's looking towards the future. I think that women have an ability to see the long game,
Mhm.
and like plan. But I understood what her friend was saying when she was just like, I didn't like how she delivered the message because it was very condescending. Like just in like how she
Mhm.
handled her was just kind of like, oh Van, I love you. Like I think she just said that a couple of times, but it was like in a
Yeah.
like, I love you in spite of, and like not
Yeah.
because of. But like she was right. Like you need to know your value. Like just because you have a kid with somebody does not mean that you have to support them in the same ways, like physically and like letting them crash somewhere just because. But on the flip side, I understand why if someone is having a hard time and it's the father of your child
One.
and you want that person to be around, you're like, well, let me at least allow him to know that, he's got a bed for the night while he, does what he needs to do because Lottie deserves better. But there's
Mhm.
a balance. And like, I don't think that Van makes herself unavailable as much as she should. Like, not Lottie, but just herself and her time. And I believe it's the first time that we find out that like Earn hangs out with other girls,
Mhm.
because Jade says like, "Oh yeah, he has been busy. I see his Snapchat." And then we see like later on when she asked for his phone under the pretense of needing Alfred's number, which I feel like she already had his number because she didn't do any motions to show that she was actually looking for it. She went through his pictures. And
Mhm.
you could see that he was out with the crazy dude that he works with at the airport. Like they had drinks. The dude was like, man, that's your cousin. Like favorite random character ever. And then there's a picture of him with Paperboy, with Alfred, and
Mhm.
then some chick who sent him a selfie.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, yeah, a friend of mine wants to meet him. And then she gives him back the phone. And I watched that scene over and over. And I'm like, she didn't do any motions like she ever like went into contacts and got the number. I feel like they're all friends. She already knew how to get in touch with them, which is obvious because then she goes and calls him. And that makes her mad, but you can tell that she didn't know that either. Like she may have suspected that he talks to people, but that she played it off for her friend, but that was
Mhm.
on her mind because she, She was just kind of like, oh, all right. So then she should feel kind of like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Like, I actually agree with her friend in what she's saying. What I thought was interesting about this whole scene was, first of all, like from the jump, you can tell how different they are. Like, they're both beautiful. You know, they both have style, but it's very different. Like, her friend is in like I don't know if it's Chanel, but like, it's like a classic type,
It's
you know,
design.
suit, and she looks like money, you
Yeah.
know, and she's confident, like she has her head up, and you know, I'm not mad at her. When I first watched this, I was like, I can't stand her friend, whatever, like what she's talking, because we talked about this, because you were more like, no, her friend was telling, I'm like, she's a bitch and I hate her, and like, that's not how you become a friend. Now, you know, like, so many of my opinions have just flipped. I'm like, I'm not mad at her friend. Like, she's surviving. Like, and I just didn't have that. It's just amazing. Things changing your life are like, you realize certain things. I think I was more judgmental a little bit of her friend then than I am now. And I'm like, whatever. She's living, she's taken care of. She's not worried about the time frames of some boss. She's like doing what she wants to do. And the thing that she does has pitfalls and cons, just like every other thing that everybody else is doing. And that's how I see it now. But like, I do think that she was a little shitty because Van shows up. Van looks pretty too, but it's different. She's got like, she just looks like more bohemian, like more flowy. Like, her hair is natural. Her friend's hair is relaxed. And when she says that she likes Van's hair, Van is like, really? Like, so she must make comments about her hair constantly. Like, I think she's like one of those friends that maybe sees it as like she's trying to help her friend, but I think she puts her down a lot. Like, she
Yeah.
puts her down in love, but she's still putting her down. Because Van's
Yeah.
like, oh, really? And then in the next few sentences, she's like, oh, she's talking about something, and she was like, yeah, I was such and such, but then I didn't like it because it made my hair too frizzy. And it's like, you don't like natural hair, but she's like one of those people like, oh, that's good for you, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like, what's this a compliment? Like, so, and then I mean, they kind of go tit for tat. Like, you can tell when one says something to the other one that pisses them off, so then they make them pay for it by like doing something else. And it was uncomfortable, but it was fascinating. It's like, these women are great actresses, and I was feeling all of it. Like,
Yeah.
it was just like, man, y'all kind of friendship kind of sucks a little bit. Like, where's the support? It's crazy.
it, it reminded me, like, it's that whole frenemy thing, and then also it's that relationship felt familiar because it felt like a relationship you have with your cousin, where like it
Yes.
was a cousin, yes, and
Yes.
it's like, yeah, your cousin is blood. I love them. They can get away with saying things because they're blood, but that shit still pisses me off, and you kind of want to get your get back every now and then. And yeah, so
Yeah.
it was that relationship. So obviously there is a closeness there. I don't think they are cousins from, you know, knowing what we know about Van from other episodes.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I saw both sides, you know, and it just begs the question, like, I mean, this whole feminine question, like, what is your value? What is your worth? What is life supposed to be? Like, what is the correct path? How she was so flippant about kids. It reminded me, like,
Oh,
this real good editor friend. Um, and I remember being in class with her because we went to graduate school together. I remember being in class with her. I was like, "You're such a great person. You sure you don't want to get married and have kids?" And that was me imposing, you know, my path on her. And I had to go back. I went back recently. I said, "Girl, I apologize. I should not have said that to you. Like, um, parenthood works for some people." And it's a choice that they should make. It was the right choice for me, but it definitely doesn't have to be everybody's choice. And there should not be the societal, you know,
hmm,
pressure for a woman, like, you gotta get married and have kids, or else, you know, you have no worth. You're so and so's mama. You know, you're not
right.
independent. But at the same time, I'm just like, is Jade really anything more than a high price call girl? Like, she is cultured. She looks good on your arm and everything. She's probably going to be discreet. But then also, like, her basketball player boyfriend wants her high, you know, for whatever entertainment she's going to provide.
Hmm.
So, like, is 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 that the life? I think for several months it could be, you know. just for shits and giggles, hot girl summer,
Yeah. Or
maybe
I mean like
post
hot girl year.
hot girl, yeah, hot girl 5 year, a hot girl 7 year plan, and
Right.
then you move on, you move on to something else.
But I feel like you laughing at just like how down I was for that. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, yeah, you could have done all these things. You could have. Um, I feel like for some people it is the life, but if you notice, the ones who are smart, they're living that life, but there's planning going on. Like, okay, this person gave me this chunk of money. I'm not going to blow it all on this Birkin bag. I'm putting some
Mm,
things aside. She mentioned that she was flying to New York to go check out an apartment. That very well could be an apartment that somebody bought her, or like she could be staying in, or maybe she was able to go ahead and finagle that apartment for herself based on company that she's kept like while she was high or like flying here and there. I think that there's a way to do it that is no different from pouring your heart and soul into a job and then retiring and then reaping the quote unquote benefits from that. Like it's the same thing. Like when you can no longer teach or have the patience or love kids anymore, then you extricate yourself from that situation. And if you've planned right, you can still get money every month because you can't do this thing anymore, but now you're going to do this. So bodies change, stamina changes, but I just feel like that girl did not strike me as a dummy. I think that she's been planning.
no,
Now that's demonized, but it's like, how is that any different from saving your money? If some dude wants to give me all of like some money, and just because some of you hoes are stupid and go and like buy it so you can floss on a gram, and maybe I floss some, or like maybe I've spent most of his money. He's wanting to do that. She's not drugging people, and she's not like siphoning funds from accounts. These are people who are willingly giving it to her. And I just feel like, yeah, she is a high price call girl. And yeah, she like if she's planning for her future, I don't see nothing wrong with it, because guess what she's not doing? Scrambling around trying to figure out how to get clean piss. Like she doesn't really answer to anybody. And then she does, but we all
whoa,
do at something. She answers to people to an extent, but we all kind of do. Like even we who are like freelancing, if you have a client and you promise, if they gave you money, there's something that you need to deliver on.
yeah, you
So
gotta
you're
provide.
answering to somebody, but you can also, that client's not going to piss test you either. So like she has some control. And what is the van the next day? There's no control. Shit is just happening to her.
They might even prefer you high, depending on the type of product you want. But that's neither here nor there. The point, the point is that I agree with everything that you're saying, and it reminds me of this podcast where they actually interviewed women who work at this brothel out in Pahrump, Nevada, which is outside of Las Vegas.
Mm.
And a lot of those women, they do it for maybe 1 to 2 years, and they're saving their money. Then they go and they end up becoming nurses, because a lot of them were talking about this profession is very similar to being a nurse. A lot of these clients that come in here, they don't even want sex. They want somebody to be intimate with, which can mean, several different things to them.
Mhm.
And I was thinking in those terms, these are basketball players that want an intimate partner, and they can't do the work to develop the type of intimacy with a partner that they're supposed to. So they're paying for the services, and she's
Yeah.
providing it.
Yeah.
And like I said, these women that work in the brothel, they finance their nursing education,
Mm-hmm.
or they finance whatever business they want. They buy a house. And I remember telling my friend, she's a stripper, young girl, she's easily pulling in $5,000 a week, and I'm like, why are you renting an apartment in Buckhead? Why don't you go ahead and pay for a house? Why don't you actually go ahead and get your driver's license and get a car? Like, why don't you use this money instead of like throwing it up in the air on parties and bottle services at the club, which is fun. You can do that. You can do that once a month, but you party all the time. It's your job. You're a stripper. So
Mm-hmm.
like set
View
yourself
it
up
as
for
a
the
job, like view it as what it
yeah,
is, because
because
there's
she
an
is
expiration date on it.
yeah, what she's doing, I mean, she's divorced herself from the fact that, her body is being exploited for money. She's just like, look, we all sell some aspect of ourselves every day, you
Hmm.
know. So she's able to separate it from that, but I'm like, treat it like the business it is. You know, make sure you're setting yourself up for the future, because you can't strip for the rest of your life. Like, you're not gonna have a 19-year-old body for the rest of your life.
Nope.
And the broads who strip in here, because there was some 40-year-old broad on the stage one day that I went. It was the most boring Monday ever. Why was that at a strip club on Monday? I was invited there. That's a different story. Anyway, she was just like, oh, she's like 40 years old with 2 kids. And I'm like, she looks good for 40 years old with 2 kids. You wouldn't have my ass up there like shaking all this around and getting paid for it. They pay me to leave. Could you go home? Stay there. But I'm like, yeah, set yourself up for the future. I don't know what she's doing now. I need to figure out.
I hope she's setting herself up for the future so that you can do like the thing that you probably actually want to do. And that's not to say that I'm sure there are some people that are like, I really like this, but even they are setting up for the future, because the one thing that you can't fight is the fact that your body is going to age.
Yeah.
And if you figured out how to stop that, you no longer need to strip. Like, you're set.
Yeah.
Like, you are set for life, because it's what we all want, or most of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I was just marveling at just how differently I felt. Like, I don't remember everything that I said, but we talked about this episode and we were kind of going back and forth, because I was more for the like, leave Van alone, or, you know, fuck her. And she's like, not, and you were more like, I think she was kind of right. And I was just like, wow, she's horrible. But I was at a different point in my life. Like, I was doing a different thing. I also really, you know, Van and like what she does for a living, of course, they were
Yes.
spot on, just like that school and the whole feel of it. But I literally was in that same spot. And it's like, yeah, she's helping children. Like, like, it was kind of like what she does is more noble type thing. But when you take that part off of it, and it's like, but why do we always, if you're doing something noble, you're miserable, or you're sacrificing something, your happiness, your right to elbow room to like just breathe and like
Yeah.
not have to constantly work even when you're not at work. And this girl is living the life. And it's like, yeah, but you know, she probably feels bad sometimes. Doctors who love their jobs feel bad sometimes, like when their patients die. Like, there is no perfect situation. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sometimes I want to die.
yeah, their patients die. Like, I don't know, somebody's check bounced for the copay. I don't know how that stuff works. I don't know if the doctor, like, it really affects the doctor or that. I don't know. But but like, it's just that, like, how you're raised, like, in this society, like, oh, this one is bad and this one is good. And even though this one doesn't have money and is struggling and does not want to struggle, because nobody wants to be poor, she's a better person.
Yeah.
Because like,
She's
why
gonna
does she have to
jewels on
suffer?
her crown. She's gonna have so many jewels on her crown in this place we're not even sure exists, or that we are sure we're going to go to. But I gotta be looking ahead, you know, to getting what I deserve for what I did in this life. I'll look ahead to the next life. Like, that's some crazy.
Oh, anger.
And again, just like what you were saying early, slavery.
Yes, like, for real. Yes, yes. Just like, we're gonna torture you, but because there's a promised land. No, I need to be promised land now, like, while I'm alive.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to point out before we move on to the next scene, that so Atlanta, the sports players that live in Atlanta, because there's how many sports teams? So
Yeah,
there's lots of money here by way of sports. And
yeah, yeah. The
the
whole
whole
scene, yeah.
the whole scene, so Buckhead, you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, late Sunday night or whatever.
And like, even her just saying like, "Oh, did you fly Delta?" Like, when I think Delta, I think of Atlanta immediately. Like, it was just familiar. It was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. Like, this could be a Real Housewives contrived meeting that they make, that the producers like make them have. And, oh yeah, girl, you looking good. Yes, I heard. So that you can like bring up somebody's tweet, and then y'all can like fake
Yeah.
fight about it. And, you know, not that that was happening there, but it was just like, yeah, I feel all of this. Like, I've seen this before. I know what's gonna happen. But this is just like one of my favorite scenes in the whole series, because there's so much happening. Like, the guy shows up. She obviously did not even tell Van like that was happening. So to me, that says a lot about who she is. Like you can tell she's always a friend. She just does shit, like doesn't apologize. And she's one of those people that in the friendship rides on that, but you know how Jade is. Like, so like you kind of unaccountable. It's like I thought that I was catching up with you. You're not here for a long time. She didn't even know that the girl had been there a day longer than what she was aware of, because she was like, "Oh, you got in yesterday." She's like, "Oh no, day before yesterday." And I'm like, and they're just she's just meeting up like with her girl, and you're leaving tomorrow. That's usually like after your mom and them, I'm going to see my friend who, if you're really close, is at your mama house, like also waiting. And so like I kind of caught that, and she kind of like looked, and so it's like, okay, now you're gonna bring these guys, so it's not gonna be an actual outing where I can really be myself, because when outsiders come in, you're not doing your inside jokes. You can't use your
Yeah.
shorthand. And then she felt away. I guess she didn't like how that guy looked, which in my opinion, he wasn't unattractive. He was fine. And not fine like fine. Like he was fine as in like he was okay. I mean, but she kind of took offense and like, you always get me the ugly guy. Like she said something like that, like in the parking.
Comparatively speaking, the tall drink of water that came in and is like his little brother, you know,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
that, and then his mannerisms was like, oh yeah, I'm on it. Like he looked like a
Yeah,
black.
and he's a lawyer, so he's probably like local. Yeah, I guess that is true, because she could have gotten like, if she's got him under her thumb, he could have bought like another NBA guy who
Yeah,
like also probably has a wife somewhere, and birthing his big head ass legacies. But whatever, that was not lost on me. Like, yeah, rah rah. I'm not against Jade because she's not married, but I was pissed. Like, oh really? Like when you said, oh, like they need somebody to be intimate with. These fools be having wives. It's like, why can't you be intimate with your wife? Like, because you have women who are just there to bring your big head ass legacies into the world, and then women that you can just fuck and whatever. No shade on Jade. Like, I feel like you got to do what you do, but that was on my mind the whole time. And maybe he wasn't married. Like, maybe he's just somebody who has a lot of different Jades, but most of them
or
are.
if the wife went and said, oh, let's do this, let's get a sitter for the kids for a week, and then go back and like do all the wild stuff you do with these girls, he would judge her. Oh, you're supposed to be the mother of my children.
And I think that that's why it makes me even more angry when like rich people do things like that, because in a regular world, I almost get it. Like you get bogged down by just the day to day of having to survive and raise your kids. When you're rich, like you just said, you can literally pay somebody to keep your or come along with you and never see them. Like, and
Yeah,
they could just be with the nanny. Like you have the means and you're just selfish. You're
yeah,
just selfish and you like want this person in the I would rather somebody be upfront with me and say, hey, because I was actually told this by somebody. You like one of them smart girl, like you're like a good wife girl. Like you're trying to like tell me like what I was. I'd rather somebody be upfront with me and say, you're the person that I want on my arm because like you can carry a conversation on with people. You have some credentials, like you look the part, you're
mhm,
pretty, and like you want kids, but that's all we're going to be. I would rather know that. What makes me upset is you have women going into these things thinking that they're about to be like a true partner in every sense of the word, and it's really not. And they're like equally gorgeous women, but they're like sexless. Even though I'm having your kids, and that is how we are having them. It's kid having sex, I guess. Like they're just supposed to be sexless. I feel like there would be a lot more, there would be fewer disappointed women if they just knew that going in. Because then they would have the agency to say, you know what, I don't want this. Or you can make the decision like, okay, I'll just be discreet with mine. I will shop. I will have a beautiful home. I'll bring your big head ass legacies into the world, but I know what is happening. It's like just give them the courtesy.
like Melania. That's the life Melania Trump is living. Like
I
she,
don't even want to speak her. I hate her so much.
but I mean, she's the perfect example of what she just described. It's like if this is the contract, this is the contract. And I think like with certain marriages, yeah, it is a contract. I think the more money that people have, they're allowed to keep it a nice, neat contract. It's an arrangement,
And I
you
don't see
know.
anything
For all
wrong
of
with
that.
that. But like,
Yeah.
don't act like, we're gonna build this together. We're gonna be this, we're gonna be that. But I just want to fuck everybody else. Like, just say that. But there's the selfishness is for the women who really care about themselves or who value the intimacy more. They're not gonna go for it, and you're gonna lose them. So I'm gonna be selfish because I want you here under my thumb, but I also want all of this. It's just so like, just be upfront. Like, I just want somebody who can look the part and who can speak and who can like talk about art and not look crazy and they're cultured and like also have my kids and you pretty. So like, we're gonna have some pretty kids with good hair and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm gonna fuck these hoes over here and like buy them apartments and like, take them to London and New York. It irritates me because while I was like, go ahead, Jade, live, live. Then I was just like, when he showed up, I'm like, his wife probably at home with his big head kids, feeling bad, probably trying to like keep it tight, and you don't even touch it.
Okay, so Van walks the fuck off, and Jade catches up, offers her weed. I feel like Van was previously a pothead, but probably got away with it. To a certain extent, like most people, most people will never get drug tested, and they smoke pot and all this other stuff and get away with it quite nicely. So, I mean, do you have comments on their little exchange in the car?
Uh, no, like just that exchange felt more comfortable to watch. Like you could see their history because she was like, "Is this the elephant shit that you gave me at Rihanna?"
Mhm.
And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
they are real friends. They have history. You see Jade's mask slip up a little bit, like you actually referenced it earlier when she's like, "Oh, please, he wants me high," because I think she was
Yeah.
like, "What about your friend?" And she sounded different. Like it slipped like back at the table when she was like, "Stop messing with these broke ass niggas." It's like all of her like the veneer and all of that. It was like, oh yeah, that's the actual Jade.
Saw their camaraderie, the level of their camaraderie, the depth of their relationship. They're kind of like, they have like a bad girls thing going on, and it's
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Van wakes up the next morning. She has a drug test that day. And yeah, the struggle is real. The struggle is real. Now, I'm not sure like if it's an Atlanta thing, but I know like having come up in the cozy confines of California and then its neighboring state, Nevada, both states in which weed is legal. Even before weed was legal there's like so many smoke shops in Nevada. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a ton of smoke shops out here, but it's just kind of weird to me because it's like you go out to the smoke shops right here, they have all these pipes and then they have like tobacco. The smoke
Mm-hmm.
shops out there are just like, we know you smoke weed, so we're selling you everything but the weed. And
Mm-hmm.
at those shops, there are these drinks that you can take to cleanse yourself to pass a
Oh,
drug test. So I was just like, I was looking at that. I'm like, why don't you just, you know, go and see if a smoke shop has it? But I guess that's not the case out here in Atlanta.
probably not. It's south, so probably not. It's always behind. Always behind. And if it does exist, it's some people with money that have it. Like they know how to get it. It's Atlanta. Like like I knew where you were going with that. And it's like think about what you're saying. The West Coast and the
Oh, yeah.
South. Yeah, that's the name of the game. Like just suffer, suffer.
Yeah, so I was just like, what stood out to me in this whole scene, she's in the room changing Lottie, and Van has come back from his night, and this is before she looks through his phone and whatnot. And he was like, "Oh, well, I'll take her, get an extra hour of sleep." He was being so sweet and attentive and kind, you know.
And I was like, what that nigga did the night before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was just that stood out.
And he immediately, because they have history, he noticed that something was wrong right away. He was like,
Yeah.
"You look weird. Like, what's wrong?" And she said nothing, which prompted him to say, like, "Look, I'll take you to get something to eat. You can get an extra hour of sleep." But before that, was it before that he asked about Jade and was very his tone was super judgy too, because he was
Oh,
like, "How's Jade?" And she's like, "Oh, she's gonna be going to New York and London," and he's like, with with who? And it was just interesting to hear him sounding all judgmental against the backdrop of like Jade going off about how trash he is, because he is in a lot of ways. And Van was just kind of like, I can't keep up. But she did it in that way of like, you can think stuff about your friend, but no one else can. Like she didn't go into it. Like she didn't vent and go back and forth. Like I feel like they probably have, but before, like I feel like they talk shit about her, probably like, she's always doing this and that, and like basically being judgmental. But I feel like she's thinking about her life decisions, and she's like, I'm not going to sit here and trash Jay, even though she pissed me off at a lot of
Yeah.
points last night. She got me thinking about you and looking at you different, and I'm looking at myself different. And so she just kind of said, oh, I can't keep up. And he was just kind of like shaking his head. And I'm thinking, what are you shaking your head at? Like, she's being taken care of. She's doing way more than what you're doing. Like, where does the judgment come from? Like, that was just
You're
like
living,
when you just don't see yourself at all,
you're living
you
out of a
know?
storage unit. Like
Yes.
living out of a storage unit. She's looking at apartments in New York. So come on now. Like, judge all you want, but who's really winning?
And she didn't drive herself to the airport, and she wasn't catching a cab either to the airport. When
Yeah.
Van called her, she was like, I feel like she has a driver in every city that she goes. Like that was a Benz, I think.
That was a hired car.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. And I mean, it's funny because I knew like she wasn't gonna have an answer for Van as far as how to pass a drug test. And the flipping way, she's like, sorry. That actually pissed me off. But like, it wasn't her problem to begin with anyway.
It wasn't, and that it pissed me off. But like, I've watched this episode so many times and have just come full circle with how I feel about her. It's like I'm amening like what she's doing, and I'm not going to demonize her, but she's kind of shitty. But she's shown that it's just like how she handles. It's like you're not going to try to call another person, like just like try. Like if it's really your friend, you should, in my opinion, have that feeling like I can't help them right. Like I feel helpless. I still need
Yeah.
to go and take care of my business. But until somebody tells me to put my phone away, I'm gonna keep trying. And I will send you texts like, I'm still working on it. She was just like, she didn't even say like, why don't you call Alfred? Like she didn't offer anything. It was just like, and then to make it worse, she's like, I never had a job where I had to like worry about that. And it's like she's
Yeah,
just twisting the knife
she never had a job that
where
didn't
it wasn't
encourage.
encouraged. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't encouraged. And I mean, it's funny because Van would not have gotten high if it wasn't for
For
her.
her.
She had the drugs. She offered it. She said, you want this. She enticed her, and like, yeah, it was her fault that she's in this predicament. And she's just like, well, you could have
It's
said
like
that.
it is, and it like Van's an adult, so like ultimately, yeah, it's her decision. But she just didn't show enough fire and like, let me try to help you, girl, or why don't you try this? Like, I don't know. That was just like, okay, she is a piece of shit, and that's why I said I could totally see this friendship divulging into something that is when you're in town, maybe we'll get together. Which to me, it seems like it's like that now.
Yeah,
Like I don't get the feeling that she talks to her between private jet flights and like she knows like because you can have a kid grow apart from your friend in that you can't do what she's doing, but if you're still friends, I can see her being like, girl, guess where I am right now, like I hate
yeah,
you, where are you, like knowing what is going on, like, oh, you're in Hawaii like with this player and this player, or if you see like one of the teams playing and you call up like, oh, I see that there's such and such, where are you, like they don't talk. And like
no,
it's just like it's history that's keeping them together.
yeah, and it's probably like not wanting to feel judged because the other side of that is Jade probably does feel judged as well, but she's just doing a better job of playing it off. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, you can't live life and not feel like you're being watched. You are. We all are.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
judged
can you
accordingly.
can tell that she feels judged because when she asked her if she flew Delta and she's like, no, it was a PJ or a private jet, and Van like looks, and then she apologetically says, but it wasn't like a nice one. It was like a rented private jet. Like, why are you explaining that to Van? It's like she felt guilty, or
Yeah.
felt the need to explain that, which is in direct opposition to how she portrays. But when you're with somebody that knows you, like they can see under your bullshit, then she's explaining that. And then she even said, God, what is something else that she said? Well, the child comment, I don't think she felt judged. I think she was really just trying. Like, I think when she feels judged, then she then turns around and does something to make Van feel like shit. Like when Van requested the chopsticks.
Yeah.
That was like, I'm pissed about what you just did, so now I'm gonna say this passive aggressive thing. And then Van, like, to show that she doesn't care when she got the chopsticks, was
Yeah.
like, what do you have to carve something up? It was just like a tennis match. Like she would do
Yeah.
something and like, mm-mm. And so then when she did something else, then she's just, well, I'm just gonna leave. Like when the guy shows up, it's like, I'm just done with this. Jade finally served her something that she could return, and then she left. She entices her to get in the car. And then she said something kind of shitty to Jade in the car. And I can't remember. Oh, I think she said something like, "Oh, I'm sure you'll find the right guy." She said something that like made her a little sad, because even though you are taking care of yourself, you're doing what you have to do, you aren't the main one, and none of these dudes is trying to have a child with you. And if one of them were trying to knock you or did knock you up, they would probably be much happier if you went on and just took care of that, or would want to know your price for never even having to acknowledge. So that's crossed our mind if it hasn't already happened. And
It
when
already happened.
yeah, and when Van was like, I'm sure you'll find the right guy, it's like, even though you're trashing her relationship with Earn, she has a child and there's a father, and he comes and picks the baby up. He's not hiding the baby.
Yeah, it could
So
potentially
yeah.
be work out to be like a successful nuclear family.
Yeah.
So
I would be really curious to see if when the season starts, like if Earn is doing much better and like maybe treating Van better, if she crosses paths with Jade, but maybe at something where there's a lot of like celebrities and like women
a
like Jade.
listening
I'd be
party.
really curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Jade is on the come up. I mean, Van is on the come up. I
Mhm.
think that'd be interesting. If you
So
guys haven't thought about that, writer's room, you should do that. Thank you. Also at Nita Charisse.
yeah, we can do the storyline because we could.
That
Um,
put us on.
so she calls Alfred. Alfred is like, dude, this is what kills me about drug dealers, because they like be resorting to all of these like cloak and dagger type stuff. The police know who's dealing and who's not, and they know who the threats are and who's not. They just
Yeah,
they
but
do.
that still doesn't mean that they want to be on the phone like, I'm here to take your order. Like everybody knows, but he was just, I just liked how they were with each other, because like you could just see history all over everything. Like Ern knows who Jade is. I'm sure that Alfred knows who Jade is. Like I feel like they all like went to the same school.
Yeah, they all went to
Um,
school.
yeah, and I just liked his little voice that he's used, because this has been done to me. Like me being like, oh, that's the good girl. If it was somebody like Alfred would be friends with somebody maybe that I'm friends with, and he was like, oh, but oh my God, you shouldn't do that, and your life is going. He did that perfectly. I was like, I know this dude. Like I know this whole thing, and he was like, I'm gonna make her pay. I'm gonna make her feel bad because she talks all this stuff, but here you are, and you need me. And shout out to Bibby. He mentioned Bibby. I didn't remember that last time.
Then he mentioned Bibby the barber. Bibby gets what did he got a test for? Is he on probation? I
I don't know.
love him.
I was
I
like,
love
did
it.
he say Bibby? I'm like, wait a minute. And he was like, man, I don't know. And he said, my man Bibby buys piss, he tapes it to his leg. I'm sure he's on probation. He was in those people's house that was being built. Somebody has called the police on Bibby before.
Bibby be getting pee from. But you know what? Barbers do be knowing like who does what because they cut everybody's hair.
Barbers are the
Mhm.
plugs for everything.
She cannot get urine at that short of a notice from an outside source. And
Right.
she
Yeah.
puts two and two together to use her own daughter's urine, which is pure. And man, like I said earlier, that kitchen had to smell like a hot mess. Like from the old diapers anyway, you
That was a
know,
lot of diapers.
it was a lot of diapers. and they're old and they ferment.
Mm-hmm.
And then she put it on the hot stove. She puts it in a condom. I love the music. I've been singing that music all
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could tell like she's on one. Like, I'm gonna do this. I'm scared, but I am gonna face this down. Goes and does it.
That's a shit got real moment. Like literally the definition of shit got real where like you are desperate. I'm gonna make this happen. So yeah. That's
Yeah,
the answer
shit got
moment.
real. That whole little scene. Um, I was mad because I'm like, girl, when she went in, why was she untying the condom with her teeth? And I'm like, that's not gonna end well. I'm just like, just take your earring out, poke a hole in the condom, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You could see that happening like, oh my God, it's so delicate.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. She wasn't thinking. Because I would have bought a little pair of scissors, but you're right. The earring would have been fine.
yeah, just poke a hole, you know. And like have the cup ready. Like she didn't even have the cup open or anything. So what was she gonna do? She's gonna undo the balloon, then have to hold it while unscrewing the cup. Like you thought about this up until this point. Then it was go time and you fell apart. And I'm just like, is she the feminine version of Earn? Like are
Oh God. Ugh.
because like does she identify with him because similar things have happened in her life where she was on the cusp of doing and being and achieving something great and then she fucked her own self, you know, because she just saved Van.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I also think too it could just be she was on one in her kitchen because the adrenaline is hitting, and so you finally like there's kind of a resolution to your problem. And I think she didn't think past that because also Van has shown that this is not something that she's adept at doing. Like she doesn't do it all the time. So
Yeah.
she found out about, like, okay, I'm going to tape it here and I'm going to tape it there. But I think that it's a function of like, I don't do this all the time. So
Mm,
she was still thinking a very conventional way, like this twist tie is here. I need to remove the twist tie instead of thinking I need to get the urine out. Like
yeah.
but I don't know. I think it might just be a casualty of like, yeah, I don't do this often. Like I figured out how to get the urine. I'm golden. She could be the female. I mean, it would explain why she would even waste her time or allow herself to get pregnant by somebody like Ern. But then again, Ern used to be in college. Who knows when that actually happened? Maybe he was doing better in life at that time.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a scholarship or something to Princeton. He's a good guy. I know that, if I tell him I'm pregnant, he's not going to tell me to take care of it because he's not that kind of dude. I could have a worse baby daddy. I don't feel like she got pregnant and Ern was the way that he is now. Like I just don't think so. Like you said, you feel like Van was more like Jade was. And Jade even alludes to that when she's mad and she's like, you used to laugh at girls like you. So Van was different. And
Mm-hmm.
so for whatever reason, she didn't, not for whatever reason, it may have been because she was with Ern and he looked like he was going to be a better bet. And she got pregnant because Lottie's about 3 or 4, huh?
Yeah,
No, she's still wearing diapers.
she's two
No.
or 3 years old.
Yeah, 2. Yeah, probably because
Yeah.
she's still. Yeah, those aren't pull ups. So it's enough. Like Van made some decision not to just keep doing the jet setting thing, and she could have been right there beside Jade. She's just as beautiful. Like she doesn't have the height, but she's a beautiful woman,
Yeah.
and it is obvious that she had different ideals at one point. So yeah, it's just very real. It like makes you think about that turning point, like, oh, I could have done this. And I think that maybe Jade just reminds her of like what she used to be and what she could have been. Of course she loves her child, but you do have those moments where it's like, I do, but if I did not have this, I could be doing X, Y, and Z. Because when you care about your child, you make the sacrifice. It's like she's not out there and like Lottie's at her parents' house and she's like going to London. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Because that just Lottie deserves a life.
So Van bursts the balloon, gets urine all over herself. Like I'm guessing she attempted to clean up, but I'm sure at this point she was just like, "Oh shit,
I
I'm
don't think
fucked."
she did. She just seems like whatever.
Yeah, I'm fucked. She's a teacher at Kipp, which great sleuthing, Sunita. I did not realize that was a Kipp elementary school. Kipp is like one of like the um are they all over the United States, the Kipp
Yeah,
school?
they started in Texas, but they're all over the place. Yeah.
So for our audience who are unfamiliar with the Kipp academies, what is a Kipp academy? Well, the Knowledge is Power program is what KIPP stands for. It's a nonprofit network of college preparatory public charter schools educating early childhood, elementary, middle, and high school students.
They're franchise schools. They're everywhere. I don't know if they're in all 50 states, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are. They are definitely in New Orleans. There are
Mhm.
lots of neighborhood New Orleans schools that used to be called things like Frederick Douglass and Colton, Carver, and not Carver. What's the other one? No, Booker T.
Ah,
And they're in black neighborhoods and now they're KIPP schools. And people still, so I don't know if they, when they took over, it was KIPP, but they will say like KIPP and then colon the original name. Um,
mhm.
I don't know if I'm correct on this, but I feel like that may have been after like pushback because the locals, it was just like, what is this behemoth that's just it's taken over everything. So
Right.
like it might be a school that's like, oh, that's KIPP Renaissance Frederick Douglass, which is in a night more. Or sometimes they just have like these aspirational sounding names, like KIPP Believe, um, KIPP Leadership. I took a screenshot of when Van walks outside to text Alfred that she wants an eighth, and he's like, "Girl, you sloppy as fuck," like because she's basically like putting in her order. She's standing next to the mission, and the name of this school is Kipp Vision. And it says the mission of
Mm.
Kipp Vision Primary is to empower all students with the character, scholarly habits, and academic skills critical for becoming leaders in their communities and essential for success in top quality middle schools, high schools, colleges, and the competitive world beyond. And I just love, like everything is intentional. And so to kind of focus, but not really, on that mission statement after the principal's like, girl, everybody smokes weed. Like, you have to do something to shake off the fact that the system is not set up for these kids to achieve. And then they're like, our mission is to such and such, and all mission statements sound the same. Like, I have been in meetings where it took like hours to write and to get it just right. There's always something about this is what our mission is. Like, this is what we're going to give you so that you can achieve. Like, there's always a thing about successful, productive members of society. It's like, yeah, this mission statement is perfect. I don't know if this is really a KIPP school. Yeah, but like it was just perfect. And I don't know what made me. I have never noticed this. I've watched this episode a million times. And she was standing there, and I was like, that's a mission statement. That's the way that I found out that it was a KIPP school, like simply from that. Because I don't think it shows up anywhere else in any of the other shots. Like as she's like walking in the school, she passes up the security guard, which that dude is a security guard at all schools. like, how did he get there? Like, he was at my school too. It looks like he
Yeah,
probably like flirts with every teacher because he's trying to wave at her and she just like walks by. And he's
she was
probably
all
used to be like, "Hey, Miss Van, you looking good," all the time.
yeah. Hey, Miss Van, looks like you got on some new shoes today.
Yes. He's
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, oh, she on a mission today." I'm like, "Hi, Mr. Earl," because his name is Earl.
Oh goodness.
It's
Mm.
just the same. So, what did you think about the scene, like when she gets called into the principal's office?
First of all, I would not have ratted on myself. I would have waited like to whatever those results came back, and if they caught me dropping dirty, I love that phrase, dropping
I never
dirty.
heard dropping. I just knew about writing. Shout
You
out
can
to
be
Chameleonaire.
you can be right dirty, but like if you take a test and you get caught dropping dirty, I would not have said, I wouldn't have
No.
said shit. I would not have told on myself. I would have been like, look, if the hammer's dropping anyway, I'll let them find me. I did not know about the lack of testing. What do they do with that urine since they don't send it to
I
actually
guess
get tested when they can't
it's just
afford?
sitting there. She said that after the first one, they don't even send it off because they don't have the money. I'm guessing it just sits there, and they probably end up throwing it away, like you do with grades after 3 years. You no longer hold on to them.
Well, I would hate to think that there was like a storage room somewhere in Atlanta with 3 years worth of teachers' urine from all the Kipp academies, but who knows? Um, yeah, I would not have ratted myself out when she went in there. I was just like, no, don't say shit.
Yeah, she blurts out. That was very dumb. But again, that goes to Van does not do this all the time. It was the equivalent of her like using her teeth to open the thing. She's not savvy. And I sometimes in the back of my mind wonder if she was just like sabotage, like she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to work there anymore. Cause like she got fired and of course she's upset because stability. She just got finished telling Alfred, like, I'm all that, we have. And then she's like, I'm going to smoke. And like you said, like she previously, I think she's going to go back to whatever she used to do prior to having to, clean up her act. And the administrator just cracked me up because she was just so not concerned. And she was just like, girl, everybody smokes weed. And then she comes just, she casually fires her and gives her a hug and is like, I'm gonna do you a favor and like let's say that we had this conversation on Friday so you can get things, in order. And then she's like, you all right? Yeah, you all right. And then just gives her a hug, like, oh, you loud. And that was it.
I said, oh, you are loud. It's all in your hair.
Her name is Danetta Jenkins, and she's like, I'm not going down for anybody. But I respected that. Like, your dumbass is the one that's told me. Now I know, so I have to get rid of you. And she's absolutely right.
Yeah,
She's
I mean
absolutely right.
that's another That's So Atlanta moment. Like, one thing I can say about Atlanta and other majority Black cities in the South, there is community there like no other place. Having grown up in California, there is not. Maybe now it's more prevalent, but while I was growing up there, there wasn't that same community outside of church.
Mm-hmm.
You have festival at the lake, somebody gets shot. You have like pretty much you only have peace, and you're able to gather with all of these people, at church or at a Tyler Perry production after church.
Yeah.
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 So anyway, like that's the beautiful thing about living out here, living in New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans, living in Atlanta, that Black culture, that Black community, that Black society, Black families at the grocery store. You see it all the time with the
Love
mom
it.
and the daddy, not just
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of single parents, mostly
Mm-hmm.
single women, struggling with their kids. But the other side of that is that ain't nobody going down for you.
No. No, because the contract that we make is you need to be smart.
Yeah,
You know how these white folks are, or like, I can't be seen. And it's a like, girl, you should know that. Like, come on, like,
yeah.
where you from? So it's in love, but I also have to be able to go to the grocery store with my family and be able to like, I was not mad at her. I was just like, yeah, dummy, you told her because like many things that you learn in any workplace, but especially in a place like a school where there's reports and it's like be careful because if I don't know, I'm not knocking your hustle. Like don't tell me because you got to do what you have to do. Like she knows that everybody's smoking, and I mean that surprises people. But it's like you teach public school, you need to be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It was just real. I appreciate this episode as usual because it's just it's so familiar and it's not contrived and it's just real. Like they got every note right with that school, especially with that administrator, even the teachers being like, I can't go to jail today, like so there's a part where the teacher asks she's complaining about this little boy and she says that she can't go to jail. His name is Tobias Halford, I think, or Holliford. And she's like, are you doing in school suspension? And she's like, yeah. um I thought it was very real when she was like, send him to Miss such and such because he loves him. Because even most challenging kid, there is always a teacher there that they have that relationship with, and it's so necessary. Because like I clocked that and was like, yeah, that's the one teacher like that could handle him and he feels safe, which is probably why he's doing crazy stuff, so that you can send him to that teacher, because you got to figure out like when they're doing that kind of stuff too. And so she says he puts on white face, doesn't explain anything else about it, but I felt that teacher, that teacher was ready to quit. And so Van is sitting there, she's loud. I'm imagining, like, can the kid smell her? And
Oh
this
yeah.
boy has like the white face on, and it closes on that, and he looks crazy. And I believe we're going to see him again, right? Are we going to see him again with the BAN network? Wasn't there somebody, a little boy with white face on, but
I
it
have
was a
to watch
different
that again.
boy? Because that's the next episode.
Yeah, I have to watch. No, that was a different guy who was saying that he wanted to be white.
Okay, so
Yeah,
they kind of extended that thing. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so it wasn't the same person. I guess it
yeah,
just reminded me of Tobias, because it's like, wait, what is happening here?
this white
So
face. So yeah, so Tobias was our mystical element. That's so Atlanta we mentioned throughout. Shit got real.
was boiling piss.
We piss.
Extracting toddler piss from a
A
diaper.
diaper 101. So now we all know, in the event
Yes.
that we run the danger of dropping dirty, but have a toddler child.
I know. I was like, oh, it almost made me wish I had to worry about that.
Thank you for watching. Rappin' Atlanta is recorded and produced by Nita Sharice and Nikki Ebo. Our theme music is Joy Clark's Galaxy Groove, performed by Joy Clark. Discover more about this talented artist at joyclarkmusic.com. Rappin' Atlanta's artwork is created by Prime Vice Studios. Learn more about this intellectual property development agency at primevice.com. You can find us on your favorite podcast player as well as YouTube. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and follow Rappin' Atlanta on Twitter and Instagram at Rappin' Atlanta.